Starting a new job can be daunting. Imagine you've changed from one job to another. Something else that's not completely different. You've got some skills you can transfer it across from one place to another. It is different. Say in your previous position, you had 10 years of experience, or 5 in that particular role, but total up in that area, in that industry, you have about 10 years. Then you switch to something else. Initially, before you did that, you figured you can transfer that knowledge. You can use it, whatever you've learned previously. It might be similar, certain things, but then when you get into it, it's not that straightforward. Yeah, there's some things you have to consider, like some of the basic stuff. Getting along with the people you work with. That's the obvious one. And the job itself can be, at times, I think, if you want to put it constructively, you might call it challenging. But I think it gets to a point where it can be a lot difficult. It becomes something else entirely. What makes it harder is if you don't get along with the people you work with. Let's say your supervisor. Let's say that supervisor is the type of person who has problems with their personality. It's just the way they carry themselves. They've probably been doing that role for a very, very long time. Maybe more than 10 years. Remember, you're starting a new place now. You're no longer the senior person, and you have to learn most of the work, the background, what it's all about, the content from scratch. And yeah, sometimes it's just not that straightforward. Say the manager or the supervisor isn't entirely predictable. He might act out in a certain way if you don't understand, put you in extreme pressures, stress. If you're the type of person who can't pick up under pressure or stress, and he's going off about the stats, about impacting the rest of the operation, the business, talking about people not getting the right money, the amount of money, maybe, if things aren't done properly. Adding that level of stress over and over again, and worse off, you're in the firing line. He's trying to explain in ways that he believes is the correct way of doing things, but it's not always that easy. For him, it seems like it's an easy thing, but for you, it probably isn't. Some people will be able to pick it up right on the spot. Some people enjoy the pressures, the stress. It keeps them going. It motivates them. But for some people, you might not be into that sort of stuff. You might not be able to operate very well. And that could be tough. Before you change your job, you saw this one, you thought, wow, this looks great. It could be, you figured it might be less stressful than your previous job, but it turns out that's not the case. Or it could be a different sort of stress. It could be equal stress. And with very little reward. The job itself might have a steep learning curve. So it's possible that they expect a certain result, a certain statistical um, performance value, to measure some sort of benchmark. So they'll say you should be hitting these numbers in this amount of time, or we had these new people coming in few months ago, 4 months before you started. How come they're able to do it and you can't? Or they imply that, or they indirectly say those things. You're gonna have to keep going. You're gonna keep up your pace. I know. It seems like it's expected, isn't it? What else would you do in a workplace? I mean, we have to meet targets. But at what point is it reasonable? I mean, I guess it depends on the job, doesn't it? The expectations might be, you gotta learn this, you gotta hit these targets by this time. If not, that's it. Or they imply that indirectly. They don't want to say it out. On top of that, you've got an unpredictable manager or supervisor that might flip out, call you out on your mistakes. He might not be able to, he might not be the type of person who likes to repeat themselves. Those are pretty bad. He might know the job inside out. Every single tricks, tips, not tips, every single little issues and whatnot. But to be able to translate all that knowledge across in a constructive manner, to be able to absorb by yourself or the others, might not be part of his skill set. And the only way for him to do that is to use the method that he's been using for the last, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, maybe. They're so used to this particular way of doing things. And if they can't reach that level, they see you doing it and they see why you're not achieving those results. But they're thinking from their perspective. So it makes things extremely difficult. So you've got to deal with your manager, your supervisor, and the job itself, trying to learn the job. So at some point you're thinking, did I really make the right choice? So this is a really tough one. How do you really get out of this? Well, you could try to get out of it. You could start hitting the job ads. Start applying for it. I know. In your mind you're thinking, what if the next place is going to be worse? What if there's no improvement? You're going to have to relearn everything again. Or you could just say, I'm going to keep looking until I find the right thing. But if you're in a place where things are scarce, thinking hopeful and constructive thoughts might not be easy. So you start looking, into a type of thought that isn't really helping at all. You got to catch yourself. How are you going to get yourself out of it? How do you proceed day in, day out doing your job? You got the senior staff telling you, pick up your game, gotta get your numbers up. Whatever you're learning, you're gonna have to reflect that in what you're doing. How do you get through all that? All they're doing with that sort of talk is, in their mind, is a motivational tool. It's a way for them to push you along. Hey, it may help. For some people, it's It helps. For others, it really doesn't do anything. So what do? Some of them would try their best to try to explain to you how to do things, how they do things. But this is a tricky situation because some of them have been there for quite some time, and they know stuff very well. But trying to explain things in a constructive and understandable way, I wouldn't say logical, because there's certain type of knowledge in a workplace that doesn't have a particular logic behind it. It might make sense, or it could be just the way they do things, and they've been doing it for a very long time. I think you could probably call that indoctrinated knowledge. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just don't have the time to find out why certain things are done that way. You just have to do it that way. Now, the next problem is not only do you have to learn how to do the job, you got to remember it. On top of, the manager, the people you work with, the knowledge that you have to learn, you also have to remember it. All the little things that it's very hard to keep track of. So you write notes, a lot of notes, but they're not in any particular order. You try to organize them. But sometimes it just doesn't connect. You've got a few choices. You just keep at it, keep pummeling at it. Even I think some of the senior staff members might suggest or say, take the notes home and work on it. So not only do you put extra time at your workplace, now you're going to have to do it at home. At some point, you're going to have to draw the line. Do you really want to keep doing this at home? Some people might say, you learn on the job. If you don't learn on the job, then that job's not for you. Well, it really depends, again, on the work. And how fast you can pick things up. So yeah, it is a dilemma. Well, again, I guess it depends on who you speak to. For some, it's a fantastic experience to do something else. For others, it could be a regrettable choice, but nonetheless, it is a choice that's been made, and you can't turn back time. You gotta have to keep looking forward. You have to try to find something else on the side, do it. But remember, you might face the same issues again. That's a chance you have to take. It's not like you're asking for a lot of reward here. But sometimes the reward and expectations don't really match up. Anyway, just keep moving.